Do we have Kim on Zoom? Just want to test that out.
Yes, I'm here, President Zyla.
Awesome. Okay. Everybody good to go? Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025, and this is the regular meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda will be our public hearing. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to convene public hearing.
Second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Mr. Mikes, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. We are hereby in the public hearing where we will be hearing from Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn, it's you, right? You're our
I'm
speaker.
just waiting for our slides.
Oh, okay. I'm like, did I miss something? Sorry. That would help, I suppose. So we know what you're talking about.
All right. Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me this evening to discuss the Adjacent Ways Levy for 2026 and the Truth in Taxation process. Arizona school districts have the ability to levy additional resources for adjacent ways expenditures, which we propose doing as part of the construction for Troy Gilbert Elementary School. State statute requires that for us to do so, we hold a public hearing on the topic in connection with our budget adoption. In connection with the public hearing, the district is required to publish information in a newspaper in the district's boundaries. We met this requirement through advertising the hearing in the West Valley View. We also will be mailing the results of tonight's board action to the Property Tax Oversight Commission. As a reminder, adjacent ways revenues are levied for construction projects to pay for improvements needed for the entry and exit onto and off of district property. For the build out of Troy Gilbert Elementary specifically, we presently believe we may need to extend utility lines, sewer, and finish a half street among some of these other items on the slide. It's fairly common for districts to have to engage in these activities when building new schools, and especially true when building schools in newly developing areas. Prior to spending these funds, the School Facilities Oversight Board must approve that the projects are eligible for this funding. Based on our current work with the architects and general contractor, we are anticipating $2 million of adjacent ways work with the build out of Troy Gilbert Elementary in 2025, 2026. To mitigate the tax rate impact in any one year to our community, we have proposed a levy for $2 million this year with the intention of levying the remainder in 2026, 2027. The levy is anticipated to cost taxpayers a little bit more than $11.03 per $100,000 of assessed valuation as shown on the slide. The adjacent ways levy is shown on the cover page of our proposed budget, rounded from the actual rate as shown on the previous slide. That's what's causing the difference between this rate and the rate on the previous slide. And then this slide you've seen before. It was the same as presented in our last board meeting, but I just wanted to talk about it again. It shows the results of our proposed tax levies, all of them, not just the adjacent ways levy, for this fiscal year compared to last. As a reminder, overall, our tax rate should be declining, even with the inclusion of this levy for adjacent ways. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, no questions. I wish we didn't have to do this, but this is how we fund our public education and schools and all that stuff. And the district, we approved the bond for us to build a new school because we need it. And this is just another additional thing that we need to build that. So
Ms. Moran?
No questions. I think it was a clear presentation, and I do appreciate, as always, that we are managing this tax burden on our constituents through assessing it over time, which we can do, and I believe is prudent.
I have no questions either. Thank you for the information. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fiscal year 25-26 school district annual expenditure budget. This will also be by Mr. Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me this evening to discuss the adoption of the district's budget for fiscal year 2026. The presentation is the same as was presented at last board meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Mikes?
I didn't have any follow-up questions.
Mr. Owens?
no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Since there are no changes to the presentation from the last presentation, I also have no questions because you answered all of those thoroughly during our conversation last month.
I have no questions, but just a reminder to any community members that are watching, we have been discussing and discussing and discussing this budget at multiple meetings. So while we're not asking any questions tonight, it's because we have already asked all the questions repeatedly over the last several months. So thank you, as always, for all the work that you do in getting this information to us and making sure that we get this done on time. Okay, go ahead.
I'll move to adjourn the public hearing.
I second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second for Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Next, we are going to need a motion to go into executive session.
I move to convene executive session.
I'll second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second for Mr. Mikes, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Thank you.